Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here in the Treehouse. Before we start our discussion of this week's entry into the Positive Masculinity playlist, I wanted to tell you to check out the show notes for the list of sources we use in this episode, as well as a list of content warnings. If you'd like to connect with us or share ideas for future episodes, find us on Instagram and Facebook at A Safe Place for Boys, or email us at safeplaceforboys@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and enjoy the show.
Fun fact about my family,
Oh boy.
Not from Michigan, certainly not from Detroit. I think that's my brother's favorite football team is the Detroit Lions. Do you know why?
Does he love an underdog?
Nope. It's because he's a Leo, and so he loves everything with lions on it. Shout out to you, Mick. Thanks for listening.
Oh, that's adorable. Well, no, I'm the same way. I'm a Virgo, so I love virgins. Anyway, moving on. Welcome to A Safe Place for Boys, compassionate conversations about masculinity in media. I am your host, Kelcee Sykes, and with me, as always, is my brilliant little girl, Dr. Spencer Todd Bennington, PhD. Spencer, how are you?
Hello. Well, apparently I'm brilliant.
You are.
And that's where I stopped listening because, unfortunately, I am with you today at only about 50% brain capacity, having recently just come off of some intestinal distress, the likes of which I've not seen since feeding a small child a can of chili. So that's about that's about where I'm at. So if I say something extra silly today, just please bear in mind I am only half present and quite dehydrated. So, but other than that, I am super stoked to be here back in the treehouse.
We're back in the treehouse. Way to skirt around my attempt to be condescending and sexist towards you. That skill is really going to take you far in the cutthroat corporate world of 1983. So congratulations on that. You do get the job. You can call me Ron.
Excellent. Thank you, Ron. I will stop cutting your steak now.
Speaking of cutting steak... why have we said all of these insane things in the intro to this particular episode, Spencer?
Because it turns out we're talking about a movie that almost wasn't a movie that somehow got distributed inside of Domino's pizza boxes, and I think only your dad has seen. But
that's not true. This movie was the 9th highest grossing movie the year that it came out.
Wow.
It competed against, I believe, Return of the Jedi.
Wow.
And it took 9th.
Yeah.
And that's nothing to sneeze at. What is the name of the movie we're talking about?
Rocky 3.
Incorrect.
Oh,
Try again.
Mrs. Man. Did I get it?
You didn't.
Mr. Mom.
Mr. Mom. There we go. Thank you. So those of you who remember back to all the way back at the beginning in our Jurassic Park episode, I referenced the fact that as a sort of stay-at-home dad, my father sort of chose to start calling himself Mr. Mom. And as usual, I did not have the full story because as he told me after he listened to that episode, he did not come up with that phrase himself. That was a phrase that he got from a Michael Keaton movie.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. This one, Mr. Mom.
This
actually.
one, yeah. Yeah. Not Batman.
No.
He could have chosen to call himself Batman, but he didn't.
No.
He called himself Mr. Mom.
Yeah.
After this movie that he saw in 1983 and liked so much.
Batman's kind of a Mr. Mom, though, in some... Okay, we don't have to go down
We simply cannot go through
do
Michael
not have
Keaton's entire filmography at this time. We have too much to talk about. But, I mean, right off the top here, thank you. Thank you, Dad, for the recommendation.
It was a really good one. I don't... You'd never seen this before,
I had never heard of it. I didn't know this movie existed until my dad was like, well, it's a movie, right?
Oh, that's wild.
Like,
I knew
never.
it existed. I definitely knew it existed. I just never seen it. But it was a pleasant surprise. I think both of us were a little hesitant and thought, surely this 1983 movie about gender norms is really going to be sensitive to today's audience. No, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Pleasantly surprised. Yeah. I did kind of go in with, some white knuckles like, ooh, we're in for some We're in for some stereotypes that maybe have not aged well, but you know what? Honestly, not really.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And as we'll get into it, that's only really one thread of the movie, and I think that's kind of what makes it brilliant. You know, it's not just about gender stereotypes. It's really a movie about labor and respecting people of different class and gender backgrounds and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
Yeah. Not just Mr. Mom, but also Mrs. Businessman.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Let's get into it. The movie opens to the god-awful buzzing. You remember those 1980s alarm clocks with the numbers that, like, flipped down?
Yeah.
Yeah, it opens with that, like, sound.
Yeah.
Where we see a married couple sleeping on what appears to be a twin-size mattress.
Yep.
For some unknown reason.
Well, they're just that close, you know?
Yeah, they really love each other. It's domestic bliss. Mom gets up. She wakes up her husband because somehow he slept through the... She feeds the fish. She wakes up her older son, Alex, who then very sweetly offers to wake up his little brother, Kenny. They share a room. I think it's Alex has the stereotypical race car bed. It's very cute. And then Mom goes to feed the baby, Megan, and starts making that. I phrased it to make it sound like she feeds the baby someone named Megan. She doesn't. The baby is named Megan.
Right. She neither feeds a baby Megan nor feeds Megan chili. That comes later.
Right off the bat, Mom gives the baby a bottle.
Yeah.
Like how babies are supposed to have.
Filled with milk or formula, not chili.
Yeah, it seems weird that we're harping so much on chili, but I promise you we'll bring it back around. And then she starts, of course, making breakfast for the whole family. Dad, meanwhile, gets into the shower with his pants still on.
With his pants on. Yeah.
Typical man, am I right?
Jeez.
Actually, I wrote a joke for this. I thought men couldn't wait to take their pants off. So this is actually an extremely progressive depiction of men already.
Yep.
This man forgets he has pants on and gets in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
But he does eventually get himself together. He goes down to breakfast. And it is at this point that the words written by John Hughes appear on the screen, which it turns out is maybe not entirely correct, but we'll get into that later. Here we have our typical sort of suburban breakfast scene. It's the scene in every movie where there's a bunch of food on the table and no one eats it. They just sort of like grab a cup of coffee, pretend to drink, and then like leave for work. But it's just sort of like, what is all this food here for? Mom is making the food. The boys are watching cartoons on the kitchen TV. And this feels like an old-fashioned, like a weird, like 1980s thing. Did you guys ever have a kitchen TV?
No. So, like, this scene is interesting to me, too, because, like, I associate this with an upper middle class style household because while we didn't, I remember going to some friends' houses that did, and it was always this, like, smaller, specifically kitchen TV.
But our houses were always, like, we just didn't, who has the counter space?
Yeah.
You know? Like, whose kitchen is big enough to put a whole 1980s television set?
Yeah.
Like, this counter space is valuable.
Yeah.
I can't be giving up that kind of real estate to watch The Price is Right while I make my breakfast or whatever. Breakfast? My breakfast?
Breakfast? I think you're forgetting something really crucial, which is The Price is Right didn't come on until 11 a.m. This is like a 7 a.m. scene, which is always crazy to me.
No, they're watching cartoons in this one. Yeah.
It reminds me of the opening scenes of That 70s Show where Red Foreman's always sitting there with like a cup of coffee and he takes one bite of toast and he's reading the paper before Eric gets down there and like only looks down to call him a dumbass before he leaves for work. Like,
yeah, this is kind of the opposite of that vibe, though, because we see Dad trying pretty hard in this scene. He sits down at the table, you know, of course, the kids are watching the TV, Megan's doing her thing, and he doesn't eat any food in this breakfast scene because nobody ever eats the food, but he starts just like pulling plastic toys out of like he's sitting on this plastic truck, he opens up the sugar bowl, there's a little army man in it where it's just sort of like, ha, kids, am I right? And then he does the most insane thing that he does this whole movie, which is he has a cup of coffee and he takes Megan's bottle and squirts the liquid into his coffee. And this raises two questions for me right away, which are equally sort of existentially upsetting. One, is he drinking the either formula or breast milk intended for his daughter, or are they just giving their baby, like, cow's milk? I don't know enough about babies to know which of those is worse, but I thought you weren't supposed to just give regular cow's milk to a baby. Am I wrong about that?
I think you're right. And also, maybe this is supposed to be an early clue that he really is, like, clueless when it comes to children. He probably thinks it's just regular milk, but I guarantee it's formula, which is really weird.
Yeah,
like,
they're giving their baby some, like, international delight in there or something. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
What are you doing? It's such a crazy thing to do.
Like, I mean, the way he's good with children in this scene is he's kind and he's patient, and he says things to little baby Megan like, never change. I like that look right there because she's got oatmeal all over her face. But
Yeah.
he's saying that, and he's jovial because he's about to leave for work.
Yeah,
he doesn't have to
won't
stay
have to
and
deal with
do
her
with any of
getting
this.
oatmeal all over every flat surface. He also tells his sons the joke of the day, which
Oh, God.
it's. Do you remember? I have the joke written down. Let's see if you can remember the punchline. So he says, "What's green and rides through the west?"
Oh, shit. I just remember the boys were so disappointed because he's told this joke like every day for the past 6 months. And is it the lone avocado or something?
It is the long pickle.
That's so stupid.
It's not good. It's really not good. And the boys
So
are appropriately disappointed in this joke. He needs to go to fatherhood.gov and use their dad joke generator.
Hey,
It is a service they provide.
don't we all?
All right. So then Dad, whose name is Jack, just as it happens, goes off to work. He's in his suit. He gets into his carpool full of stuffy businessmen in suits. And they all, he's like, "Ugh, I didn't get any sleep last night." And the other men in the car, one of whom is his boss, who is ominously named Jinx. They're all kind of also tense and nervous, and they're kind of hinting that the business that they all work for might be in a little bit of trouble because this movie is set in the great American city of Detroit. It joins the proud cinematic tradition of movies exploring the plight of white people in Detroit, like 8 Mile and White Boy Rick. Just a really illustrious tradition of the most important stories to come out of the city of Detroit. Which is what's going on with those white boys.
Yeah.
Why are they so sad?
Yeah.
And moreover, the industry that these well-dressed business boys work for is, of course, it's Detroit. It's the automotive industry, which is great because the automotive industry in Detroit is famously stable, know, especially in, wait, what year was this movie set in again?
1983.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, it's great
Oh, no.
times for cars and automotive. Solid as a rock.
Nothing has ever gone wrong in the automotive industry in Detroit in the 1980s.
Not that I know of.
Well, anyway, and it doesn't matter because Jack is an engineer.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he's going to be fine.
You see, he designs
designs
cars.
the cars. He's very important. Or he certainly thinks so, at least. Because he's going on sort of a tour of the actual, like, manufacturing plant. He's kind of palling around with some ambiguously ethnic auto line workers.
He's trying to. What is he even doing? Like, he's just clearly ducking his job in this scene, by the way.
He's just sort of like overseeing, whatever, just wandering around the factory.
He's literally just wandering around. He says, "Man, I'd love to stretch my legs and come down here and see where it's all done."
Yeah.
It's like, shouldn't you be doing something?
Do you have a job? Well,
no.
Anyway, he's talking to these guys, and he's like, "Oh, you guys look depressed." And he asks if they're worried about the Lions. And he says, "Oh, don't worry, it's just preseason. They're slow starters." I wish I knew enough about football to make a good joke about the Detroit Lions here. But all I can say is that if Jack in this scene is correct, then the Lions' preseason must have been 40 years long because 2023 is the first year I know of in which the Detroit Lions have been any good at all.
Hey-oh.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me say my very funny football joke.
Yeah.
And I apologize to my family, every member of which could have come up with a better joke. But, it's the best I can do. The Detroit Lions are bad at football.
They're bad.
Or they have been. Maybe they'll be good this year because they were good last year. Who knows? Anyway, so he makes this joke about like, "Oh, don't worry, the Lions will be fine." And they're like, "No, we're not worried about the Lions, man. We're worried about the lines."
Picket lines, welfare lines, unemployment lines.
Yeah, because they are aware that they work in the automotive industry in Detroit in 1983, and they can kind of see the writing on the wall. But Jack wants to be positive, so he says some like real condescending bullshit about like, my wife and I, we were watching Rocky the other night, and I think we're all like Rocky because
Yeah, but which Rocky was it? Was it 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3?
Well, I'm not really sure. It's just, what Rocky, sometimes he's down, but he's not out.
Yeah, well, who was he fighting? Was it Apollo, or was it the guy with the mohawk, Mr. T?
Was Mr. T there? Was his manager still alive? Jack can't answer those questions because it becomes quite clear that Jack has never seen a Rocky movie. He just sort of vaguely knows that it's a sports thing where a guy sometimes is down but not out. And it's a very interesting way to characterize Jack in this moment because he's trying so hard to seem approachable to these blue collar guys. And he knows enough to know that Rocky is this sort of working class hero. But the fact that he can't remember anything specific about any of the films is very telling about his sort of place in the world. He is not necessarily one of the people at this point in the story.
I thought that there was going to be a moment in the first 15 minutes of this film where I was going to be tempted to turn it off because of some like weird gender stereotype thing. No. This was the moment. This was the moment when his character didn't know anything about Rocky. I was like, oh my God, I'm over it. I'm sick of this guy.
This guy is at this point not coming across as super sympathetic quite yet.
He's a buffoon.
Yeah, he looks very stupid, which is unfortunate for him because some blue collar solidarity would really have served Jack well in this moment because he is about to get fired.
Yeah.
Furloughed.
Important distinction actually in this movie.
Yeah, so he goes up to Jinx's office where his other two business friends are already pretty visibly upset because Jinx has, in fact, just told them that they are losing their jobs. And Jack's first reaction is like, how could you do that to these two? They've been so loyal and they're such hard workers. I just think it's terrible that you would fire them. And Jinx is like, I'm also firing you. And then Jinx does maybe the most condescending thing anyone does in this whole movie is he's like, well, don't worry though, guys. I'm going to prorate the gas money you paid me for the carpool so you can have your gas money back.
Unbelievable.
Oh, God. So all three of these business boys are pretty upset. The Christopher Lloyd character, because Christopher Lloyd is in this movie for 2 seconds, says it's not enough to get his severance package and his gas money back. He wants disability, too, and he tries to, jump out the window. The other boys wrestle him back in, and then he tries to strangle Jinx with his bare hands, and it's just kind of a mess.
And then they go and drink so much that he ends up becoming Doc Brown, to then later star in Back to the Future.
Yeah, this is a crossover
That's how he gets
event.
crazy.
Yeah. The Doc Brown actually started out as an automotive engineer.
Yeah. Well,
they don't tell you that, but that's his backstory.
Well, if you think about what he does in that movie...
disgraced nuclear physicist.
Yeah, he's still an automotive engineer. He's just working on DeLorean.
He's really narrowed his range.
Yeah.
Is that even a American-made car, the DeLorean? I don't know.
Have no idea.
So Jack comes home to his family with his little box full of stuff from his desk, and his family has already found out that he has lost his job, but the mom, who is named Caroline, has dressed the little boys up nicely, and they're like, oh, we're gonna greet Daddy when he comes home, and don't say anything about how he lost his job, okay? It's gonna hurt his feelings. Don't say that. So the first thing that happens when Jack walks into the door is Kenny says, we heard you got fired. And then Alex says, what does Alex say?
You're not a bum, are you, Daddy?
Just right off the bat. I mean, God bless him. Caroline tried. She tried, but, kids say the darndest things.
Is it Caroline or Carolyn?
Caroline.
Okay.
Sweet.
I'm going to say Carolyn.
Carolyn. I don't know.
It was Carolyn.
Doesn't matter. I think you're right. Anyway, Kenny offers Jack his security blanket, which he calls his whoopee, which is very cute.
It is cute.
And Jack is feeling okay. He's pretty optimistic that he's going to manage to get another job, and this is a temporary setback, but we're going to be fine. So Carolyn is like, well, it's good that you feel optimistic about finding another job, but, she has this idea she's been thinking about for a while. What if she goes back to work?
She has a college degree after all.
Yep, she has a few years of expertise in advertising,
Yeah.
so, why not? And what is Jack's reaction that you object to so much?
He freaking laughs in her face. He laughs at her, tells her that, and this is where it gets utterly disgusting. He straight up makes her a bet, one of her dollars to 100 of his, and she doesn't even have $1, so he's like, oh, okay, I'll give you the $1 and then bet you $100 to your one that I will get a job before you. And it's not enough just to make this bet with his wife in this like show of what could have been silliness. He calls the kids downstairs to encourage them to also bet on this as a way to, I guess, just clown his wife. Like, I don't...
Yeah, she's like just earnestly trying to be helpful in this moment. It's just like, no, I don't want to make a bet. Just like one of us needs to have, like, we'll have better chances of one of us getting a job if we both try to get a job. Like, I'm not trying to like be funny. I was just trying to be helpful. And he's just like, isn't this funny, boys? Your mommy thinks she's going to be able to get a job.
And to this movie's credit, I love how the passages of time are just like jump cuts.
Yep.
Because we go directly from this scene to the scene where like she's leaving for work. And
yeah. If you guessed that Carolyn would in fact find a job before Jack does, congratulations, you win $100.
Yep, you got it.
And that's in 1983 money.
Yeah.
So that's really worth something.
That is quite a few Colonel Sanders dinners.
Carolyn has in fact found a job at an advertising agency, and she has the best first day of work fit I have ever seen in a movie. She's got a little cute little cardigan with a Peter Pan collar and a little, I wrote the whole outfit down because I was like, she looks so cute. It's adorable. Peter Pan collar, little like cravat thing. She's got her cardigan with the sewn in, like instead of shoulder pads, it's like sewn into the fabric, little puffs on the shoulders. And it's, a matching pleated green skirt and just gigantic bangs. And she looks incredible.
She really does. She looks great this whole movie. Shouts out to Terry Garr.
Just, chef's kiss. Truly beautiful. I would wear that whole outfit right now. And she's going over this list of all the kid stuff that Jack needs to remember. This is when you need to take Alex to school, and this when they need to take their naps, and blah, blah, blah. And she reminds him that this is actually like a really great opportunity because a lot of men would love to spend time with their kids like this, which is kind of an incredible statement because Al Gore wasn't even vice president yet. So... yeah. Terry Garr is some kind of oracle.
Oh, yeah.
And Jack is being like very positive in these scenes. Like he's not bitter about it at all. He says he's a regular Phil Donahue, which I'm sure is a very funny reference. And then he, sends her off to work and is like, good work, good job. I'm proud of you. Good luck.
Phil Donahue like a talk show host, I think?
I think so. My dad will tell me.
Yeah, okay.
Dad, who's Phil Donahue? I don't get that joke. Anyway, so first things first, Jack fucks up school drop-off.
Oh, yeah.
Just terribly.
Enter from the north, exit from the south.
Yeah, there's like this little parking lot that you're supposed to drive into a certain way so you can drop the kids off of this side and blah, blah, blah. And all the other moms are so mad at him because he pulls into the parking lot in the wrong direction. And like, okay... So everybody else knows the system. What? Put up a sign. This is not the first time in this, or the last time in this movie where my feeling will be like, if there's a way that everyone's just supposed to know to do something, just put up a sign. Yeah. It's not that hard. This is not like intuitive, gendered mommy knowledge. Put up a sign that says, enter the parking lot in this direction, exit in that direction. It's not that hard, you guys. You don't have to be jerks about it. But anyway, meanwhile, speaking of places where people are jerks where they don't have to be, across town at the Richardson Frankel Advertising Agency, Carolyn meets the meanest woman who features for 4 seconds. It's her boss's assistant who is like, oh, welcome to work. And she's like, oh, yeah, I talked to Ron. It's like, don't call him Ron. Oh, well, he asked me to call him Ron. And it's this weird, like, passive-aggressive, mean, corporate 80s woman conversation that I was just sort of like, why are you both already mad at each other?
So my read on this, and I think we both kind of had different takes, I think whoever this character is, do we even get her name?
No,
assistant
she's
lady?
just Ron's assistant.
Yeah, so like she's giving Carolyn the rundown on how to behave when they walk into this room full of animals that are like supposed to be pitching advertisements or whatever.
Yeah.
And so in this debrief, she's like, no one calls him Ron, right? And to which Carolyn's like, oh, well, he told me to at lunch. And this assistant's like, you had lunch together, right? Which clues me into immediately that Ron has the hots for Carolyn. And I think this assistant woman is either A, jealous, and like that's what she's been angling for, is to catch Ron, or B, upset by proxy because she doesn't want to see a woman be abused by the boss.
Yeah.
But it manifests in this weird, like, competitive, like, told you so, like, it's a cutthroat world out there, and you have to be an 80s shoulder pad woman like me to survive.
Yeah.
So it's all wrapped up in this very small scene, though.
Yeah. It's a very aggressive energy from a character who only shows up in one more scene and never becomes more important than this.
Yeah, and like somehow in that other scene, I think the vibe even changes. We'll get there, but like, yeah, this was a character that...
She's very weird.
Yeah,
and she doesn't have a name. We can't even be like...
Something got lost here. I don't know.
Yeah. But anyway, she then ushers Carolyn into the world's smokiest boardroom.
The trashiest boardroom, too. Like, just litter and smoke.
No one is even smoking. They're holding lit cigarettes in their hands.
Or, no, most of the lit cigarettes are just sitting in ashtrays.
Yeah, they're not... No one's even physically interacting with the cigarettes. They're just lit and spewing smoke up. And there's so much... This is... The most product placement in this whole movie is just like... Trash from every fast food restaurant is just sitting on top of this table, and everyone in the room is yelling about tuna fish. Because they're trying to come up with a way to advertise tuna fish to people who don't want to buy tuna fish because there's a goddamn recession going on and no one can afford premium tuna fish, which is where Carolyn's expertise could actually be sort of helpful. So her boss, Ron, looks at her and is like, hey, you're a housewife. You buy tuna fish.
I believe he says homemaker, which is a little bit more respectable. Housewife. Married to a house.
Let's give Ron as many points for being respectful as we possibly can. But basically he is like, hey, you're a person who like actually goes to the grocery store and makes decisions there. Which of these ideas that we have pitched appeals to you? And she basically looks at all these like mock-ups for ads and is like, none of these would appeal to me at all. And then everyone else in the room just starts shouting.
Bro, what do you know?
What
Crazy
does this lady
lady.
even know?
You don't know anything. We hate you.
Yeah, so she is not having a good time.
Throwing garbage at her, lit cigarettes.
Well, no.
We hate you.
No, at one point she starts trying to like, because there's just garbage everywhere. She starts like clearing garbage away from like the place where she's sitting and trying to kind of clean up. And Ron is like, we have people who do that. And she was just like, oh, okay. Force of habit, I guess. Like,
that right there, by the way, I haven't thought about it till just now, is yet another clue that this movie is about more than just gender stereotypes. It's about labor.
Yeah.
Like, we have people that do that. Like, that's already a clue that there's this stratosphere of labor that's important and labor that's menial that runs through
you're
this
in
film.
Advertising now. You don't need to clean things.
You're an
that's
executive.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know who's really doing some menial work is Jack. We flash back to Jack. He is also bad at driving at the supermarket somehow. This whole scene stresses me out so much. But this man is just fully, like, full force bashing his cart, like, into other people. He runs into every display in the supermarket. He knocks everything over. He's like hitting people. It's wild that this man has so little spatial awareness.
I mean, to his credit, holy guacamole, have I never seen a supermarket quite so freaking frenetic as this one. Like, people are everywhere. These 2-pound chicken ladies, as we would call them back home, are just everywhere, just coming around every corner. And one of those displays, he didn't even touch, and it did fall down. And that's just, I've been there, man. Like,
it's also the other layer that makes this scene ludicrous is that Jack has just never encountered food before. He is at this deli counter, and he's like, I need some ham. And the lady is like, what kind? And lists off some kinds of ham, and he gets stressed out, and he's like, never mind, salami. And she's like, okay, we've got a couple of types of salami. He's like, oh God, no, cheese.
Yeah. He literally just says cheese.
Spencer, how old were you when you first discovered there were multiple types of cheese?
Now, again, this is where we are tapping into some 80s stereotypes, because this indicates that he has never gone shopping. Like, I think he knows what these things are, but he doesn't know how to buy them or ask for them. Whereas ever since I was a little boy, I went with Mom to the grocery store, and I don't know, I could get by, you know?
somebody wouldn't be like, do you want Swiss cheese or cheddar cheese? And you wouldn't just immediately have a panic attack?
I wouldn't
Is
crumple.
That what you're saying?
Well, what I would say is anything but Swiss, not Swiss, please.
Anything, really.
And I love the old lady in the background at the deli counter who's like, just order bologna.
Yeah. And all of these old women are standing so close to him.
Those are the 2-pound chicken ladies.
Oh, God. They're just literally breathing down his neck.
As a man surrounded by a bunch of old ladies, you can't even, like, move your body without accidentally breaking someone's hip. And that's stressful.
Yeah.
That's stressful.
Yeah, and everyone in this store is so rude. Like, everyone he encounters makes fun of him for some reason.
Oh,
it's so wild. But truly the most unhinged part of this scene. And I feel like you and I have a disagreement about what happens next.
Okay, all right.
His son is switched out for a different child, which the person checking out the groceries is like, you lost your kid. And it's like, well, no, somebody else had to put that other kid in his cart. Kenny could have climbed out of the cart. Mm-hmm. Why did this other kid climb in? Where did this other kid comes from? And we never find out because he's just like, he grabs this other child and is running through the store trying to find his son. So he finds Kenny standing next to this other lady. And he's like, oh, okay, here, I found your kid. You found my kid. He gives her the kid and he takes Kenny's hand and the lady's like, oh, thanks. Wait, I don't have kids.
Yeah.
So this other child, we never find out what happens to him. He's just lost, and his mom doesn't seem to care about where he is. And so Jack gets back to the checkout line with Kenny and finds that the baby is gone.
Oh, yeah.
And again, the lady at the checkout line is like, you just left your baby there? And it's like, okay, I'm sorry, ma'am. You were standing 2 feet away. You saw someone take the baby out of this cart. The baby can't move on her own. Why didn't you stop someone from taking the baby out of this cart? Like, I get it. It's not your kid, whatever. If I saw a man leave his cart temporarily to go do something and the baby was still there and I saw someone else come up and try to grab the baby, I might say something. I don't know. I'm not a parent, but, like, I feel like I would say something.
Kelcee and I remember this scene so differently. Just speaks to how chaotic it is, because I don't think that's how really any of it happened, but the broad strokes are...
I'm so mad.
The broad strokes are the kids got gone somehow at some point, and because I was so focused on the bologna and the Swiss cheese and all of the many things that Jack was breaking in the store, I cannot tell you with certainty how and when they got gone. But what we do know is that our hero, Joan, saved.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I will fight you physically on this point. I know how Megan got gone.
Yeah.
And this fucking woman came up to Jack's cart and took the baby out and went to a different part of the store with the baby.
Maybe.
And when he found her and was like, excuse me, is that my baby? She's like, oh, haha, yeah. Hi, I'm Joan.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, this is not a meet cute. You stole his baby. I don't care if he left the baby alone for 2 seconds. Yeah. You don't get to take a baby out of someone else's cart.
My only theory about what you might be overlooking is that he just straight up mixed up his cart. Like, he left the cart to go get the maxi pads and then was so embarrassed by putting it in his cart that he just grabbed another cart with another blonde kid in it that didn't have the baby.
Yeah, but Megan was in the cart.
At the checkout aisle?
Yes.
See, that's some...
Megan is in his cart until Joan takes her out.
We're gonna have to review the tape.
This is why my belief is, from the jump, that Joan is a villain. Because what she says to him is, oh, Caroline told me that you would be here at the grocery store. And so I just, hung out here at the grocery store until you showed up and left your kid for 2 seconds so that I would have an excuse to come and talk to you and give you my phone number.
Yeah.
That is my theory about Joan's behavior in that moment. I think this was intentional. It was a setup because we know Joan's mission on site is to get into Jack's pants. And we know that because as Jack is leaving, this other woman comes up to Joan and is like, ugh, he's married. And her response is,
so were we once.
So were we once. So we know what kind of person Joan is.
I love Joan, and I don't fault her for being a potential homewrecker. Like, shoot your shot. And Joan's a smokestack, so...
Joan is a smokestack, and that's fine. She could have any man she wanted, is the thing about Joan.
Yeah.
She chooses Jack. And I would not have been upset if she had seen that Jack was stressed out and, like, trying to figure out where Kenny went and been like,
right.
Hi, I'm Joan. I'm a friend of Carolyn's. If you need to go and find your son, I'll stay here with your cart and watch your baby.
Right.
That's not what she does.
No.
She takes the baby somewhere else so that when he gets back to the cart, he's like, oh my God, my other kid is gone now too.
Yeah.
And she manufactures that moment so that he has to come and find her.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel altruistic to me. I'll just say it.
Oh, no, it's not. It's not. Like, I just like Joan.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, but I also kind of feel sorry for her because I think she's deeply sad. But that's a different discussion. The problem is she just looks like an amalgamation of every single one of my aunts. So it's hard to be like, yeah, get some. You're all of my aunts. Anyway, not that my aunts shouldn't. It's fine. Anyway.
Well, you don't look like my aunt, so to all of Kelcee's aunts out there, congratulations for being really hot.
I come from a good-looking family. I don't know what you want from me.
Dear listener, since last we spoke, I have come to a glaring realization that, in fact, I was wrong.
We reviewed the tapes.
And in our intermittence of a brief power outage due to a summer storm, I have come to realize that, in fact, Joan is a villain.
She took that baby.
Yeah, so just in case we edit out a bunch from before, the scene goes down like this. Jack leaves the grocery cart with Kenny and Megan in it to retrieve the maxi pads. Jump cut to the checkout line, where then and only then does he realize that there are two children in his cart, one of which is not Kenny. It's some boy named Stephen?
Yeah, his name is Stephen.
And so Jack's immediate reaction is to lift Stephen out of the cart.
And notably, the other child is Megan.
It is Megan in the cart. So he lifts Stephen, runs around the grocery store like a chicken with his head cut off, finds Kenny, replaces. We covered all that, sure. Comes back to the checkout line where his entire grocery cart is gone.
Including all of the groceries that the cashier scanned, but which he has not paid for yet.
As well as the ones that were left in his cart, because he was about halfway through. And oh, yeah, by the way, Megan is also gone. And to which the cashier replies, "You left your baby in a grocery cart?"
Yeah, in front of you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Where did she go? Tell me where she went.
Also, we were in the middle of a transaction. What kind of business is this?
Yeah. A secondary villain in this scene is the cashier, who just, like, kind of thinks this man's very obvious distress is funny and, like, let someone walk off with his kid and then just, like, I don't know, threw his groceries on the floor. I don't know what she did with his groceries.
So while I am a firm believer in actor network theory and distributed blame, I must recant and say that all signs point to the fact that Joan not only took the baby, but the entire grocery cart for some reason, and then just went to a random aisle. Like,
yeah.
What?
She wandered off. She didn't stay at the checkout line and be like, oh, Carolyn told me you were going to be here. I'll watch your stuff. Go find your kid. No, she walks off with all of his stuff, including his child.
And that would have, by the way, just been a better way to pick up Jack, is to, like, be there in his moment of extreme vulnerability, not add to the stress. Like, there was already stress. I don't know. So, yeah, she is more than an agent of chaos, which is, a person that I can admire. She's a little bit villainous there.
Joan is up to no good.
Yeah,
confirmed.
I had it wrong.
All right.
But anyway.
Back to your regularly scheduled programming. Anyways, that's day one. Day one didn't go great. Not for either of them. Day two starts with Ron showing up at their house in a limousine to take Carolyn to tour, like, a tuna plant or something.
They're going to the airport, right?
Yeah, they are, because they then take a private jet. But, like, that seems like a big old red flag. The rest of this scene, spoiler alert, is going to try to make Jack look like he's being kind of a possessive dickhead about Ron. But it is, even in the 80s, it feels like it's maybe not that normal to show up at your new employee's house with a limousine. And then, like, he comes up to the door himself, knocks on the door, The kid answers with like a fucking BB gun, which is okay. It's cute, I guess. But then he walks inside and is like, I'll wait for your mommy here. Like, no, you have a limousine. Go wait in the car, Ron. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. It's very much I'm picking up someone for prom instead of we have to do this business trip together. Like, okay, you're wealthy, extremely. Why didn't you just send a car to pick her up?
Yeah. Just send
You don't
a car.
need to carpool, obviously. Maybe this is your personal limousine. Okay, cool. But like, yeah, nothing about like, yeah, it's gross. It's gross.
We get the sense that he is trying to impress her and he doesn't particularly care that like her husband and kids will see him doing this.
It's clearly a flex. It's meant to mirror the same kind of flex that Joan was doing, you know, it just in a different arena.
Joan is trying to sort of take advantage of Jack's sort of vulnerabilities in that moment, and Ron is trying to sort of like overwhelm Carolyn with how impressive he is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also equally like exploit her vulnerabilities. The whole reason she's working for him is because her husband got laid off or furloughed.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, to flex his immense
Ron
wealth.
knows that too. Because he's like, oh, I heard you lost your job. I'm sorry about that. And Jack, who has walked into the room holding a running chainsaw in his own home and wearing overalls, and it's all very safe and normal, is just sort of like, oh, well, you know, it's actually good. I'm doing some work on the house, you know.
Just doing some renovation. You know.
Yeah, it's gonna, I'm gonna tear down that wall just to redo all the wiring, you know.
Oh, what are you gonna do? 220?
220, 221, whatever it takes. Which is very funny. And then they have a deeply weird interaction. So I do have, this is the only thing I'll have you read for this particular part, but we've got a little dialogue there. So I will be reading the part of Ron.
And I will be playing the part of Jack.
Oh, I'm just waiting for Caroline.
Well, you know women.
I like to think I do.
You want a beer?
It's 7 a.m.
Scotch?
Get it? 'Cause he's a man.
He's a manly man.
Yeah. This does not impress Carolyn much. It doesn't seem to really impress Ron, but Carolyn absolutely clocks this as like some stupid posturing bullshit. And she is looking at him like, really? Come on, man.
Much like his dialogue when they're leaving the house, where he says something to the effect of, well, if you need me, I'll be at the hardwood the hardwood store.
I'll be at no, they go to the hardwood store later in the movie.
If you need me, I'll be at the hardware store or the gun club.
Yeah, I think he says the gym.
Oh, the gym,
The gym or the gun club.
Yeah, sure.
Which
the trifecta
does not
man.
impress her at all. And she also doesn't seem like all that impressed by the airplane Ron takes her on for a day trip where he gets a full steak dinner served to him. Which, God, just... And boomers wonder why we're so mad at them. Oh my God. How many ways can you kill the environment simultaneously?
Yeah.
Ron's really trying. And so Carolyn and Ron have this interaction where he is like noted that her husband seems uncomfortable with him and is basically like, is that gonna be a problem? Like, does your husband not want you doing this job? And she's like, no, he's very supportive. And she's like aggressively cutting Ron's steak for him because she's such a mom, you know? She just can't help herself. But they basically come to an agreement where like she is an executive and he would like to treat her as an executive, which means she must kind of step a little bit away from her identity as a wife and mom.
Which, by the way, if that conversation ended there, that would have been a perfectly reasonable thing for a boss to say, bring up.
No, he shouldn't be commenting on her home life at all, but he also shouldn't have shown up at her house with a limo,
okay.
So whatever.
The question of, is your home work life balance going to be an issue with the parameters of this job, like, is a fine thing to address in the open. But then he follows it up with, like, the most ridiculous, like, that's the scene where he's just like, well, you're so suited for this job because of your previous experience as a homemaker, and also, you're just so dang beautiful.
Yeah, basically being like, you're going to be good at this job because you're hot and people will listen to you just because you're hot, which maybe is foreshadowing. But anyway, at home, it's laundry day.
Oh,
and if
God.
you thought a movie called Mr. Mom would maybe be entirely composed of montages of a man not knowing how to do chores, you're only a little bit right, because this is, fortunately, the only scene in which we get this sort of slapstick humor. But boy, do they really, really go for it. So here's just like a quick list of all the things that go wrong on day 2 for Jack. So first of all, he just mixes all of the cleaning chemicals together and just like throws them all in the washing machine, along with like every article of clothing and piece of bedding in the whole house, just really crams them all in there.
It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, the kids, they're making a big mess. Megan's in her little walker thing, and she's pushing things over, and gosh, she's gonna have to use the vacuum cleaner that Carolyn calls Jaws, because it's scary. Because this vacuum cleaner is ambiguously sentient. It like literally can kind of move on its own. So it's like it's sucking up the curtains and like running things over and blah, blah, blah. Alex, who I think is maybe like 6 or 7, but has an awful lot of responsibility, as is the lot of the eldest sibling. He's trying to make chili, and he sets off the smoke alarm, and so the chili's burning on the thing, and 3 different, like, service people come to, like, somebody's here to fix the TV, and there's an exterminator there to get rid of the termites, and there's somebody else who's there to fix the water heater or whatever, and, like, all these people are coming in and out of the house, and they're all being very judgmental about Jack and his parenting. The washing machine, as predicted, goes the washing machines will like start to vibrate enough that they kind of move if you put too much stuff in them. It does that, and then it comes detached from the wall, and the hoses is spraying water everywhere, and oh no! The vacuum cleaner starts chasing Kenny Chesney is there. He gets chased by the vacuum cleaner. And it tries to eat his security blanket. Oh no! Megan finds the can of chili and eats the chili. I told you it'd come back around. And oh no! This father of 3 has to change a diaper. Oh no!
So the thing that is funniest about, like, everything that could go wrong is going wrong, but then the cable worker is the one who comments after in this like disaster zone of a home, and her response is, "You fed the baby chili?" Like the house might as well just be burned down, and that's her biggest concern as well.
He drinks her formula, so she should get to eat his chili. It's only fair.
It is.
This is an egalitarian household. What bothers me the most is that this man is supposed to be an engineer.
Yeah.
And he can't, like, find the off switch for any appliance in his home. Like, he can't turn the stove off. He can't turn the vacuum cleaner off. He can't figure out the washing machine. Like, I don't want to drive this man's cars.
This is, again, this, like, beginning half of the movie, I'm just like, who is this clown who's supposed to have gone to college, knows about engineering, says he was in the army, and yet has no practical life skills that transfer to taking care of his family or his home? Like, this guy is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty outrageous. But, the job search isn't really yielding any results. There's a, like, sort of charming scene at, like, an unemployment agency where Jack, goes in for an interview, and he's sitting down between these 2 other guys in the waiting room, and the 2 men are talking about, they're swapping recipes. They're talking about, like, recipes they like to make for their wives, and the one guy's like, oh, I've got my, like, hamburger, whatever.
Some kind of hamburger helper casserole kind of crap
thing. And Jack is sitting there listening to that, and he's just like, "Oh, actually, that sounds like a pretty good recipe." And then he's like, "Hey, can you actually write that down for me?" And the guys are all just sort of like, "Yeah, no problem." Like, there are no jobs, and so we've all just kind of gotten comfortable in homemaker roles. Like, it's just like a bygone conclusion for these 2 men in this waiting room. Like, yeah, like, we come here and do this because, you got to, but, like, we all know we're not going to get a job out of this. Yeah. So, like, we've started doing the thing where we swap recipes. And, like a good little housewife, Jack has to go to one of Carolyn's work events with her, which just so happens to be at Ron's, like, ancestral house.
God.
where, again, we get a little bit of, like, this, the family in the A-plot is decidedly, like, middle class, maybe even upper middle class, but, like, Ron is something else. Ron's got that old money.
Yeah.
So his house is gigantic, and he's hosting this, like, field day sort of thing, because he just has a gigantic yard with all these, like, silly field events set up in them. But the first thing, like, as the scene is opening, the first thing Ron says to Jack is, "You must be so proud of our little Carolyn."
Ugh.
Because
Blah.
that is the thing, is people just keep referring to Carolyn as a little girl.
Sorry, little lady.
Little girl. Which is weird, because in that same conversation, they're talking about how she just got, like, a promotion at work. And still it's like, isn't that adorable?
Yeah.
Like, good. She's like a 40-year-old woman. Stop it.
Also, this is where things start to dawn on you that there might be some problems coming up in the marriage, because this is not a promotion that Carolyn has told Jack about, and she even tries to downplay it in the moment. You know, it's just a small thing. It's not a big deal. As if to say, like, she's kind of clued into the fact that Ron is treating her differently than other employees, but is hoping that it's not going to go the way she thinks it's going to go, and clearly doesn't want to provide Jack with any more ammo for wielding chainsaws and going to the gun club or whatever.
And we're like, the takeaway is supposed to be that, like, maybe Jack is being sort of jealous and unreasonable about Ron, but honestly, like, no, Ron is terrible.
Yeah, Ron's being a turd.
Shove him off his own balcony. I hate him.
In fact, in this scene, Jack was not going to compete in the company Olympics or whatever. He was there, like, holding a diaper bag with the kids.
Yeah, and it's just because Ron is like, oh, I thought, since you're such, like, an athletic, like, strong guy, maybe I'd
thought
have
you
some
were
actual,
a sportsman.
Yeah, an actual competition this year. But if you want to go, that's fine.
Right.
You can go. And it's just, like, the most transparent attempt to goad Jack into participating, which does work.
It does work.
But all of the other guys, as they're kind of, like, doing the most bizarre stretches I've ever seen men do in my life, they're all like, hey, you've got to let Ron win.
Yeah. This is his picnic. This is his event.
Like,
you let the boss win.
If you, like, you have to do this for your wife's sake. The implication being, like, if you beat Ron, he's going to fire Carolyn.
Yeah, she's going to get punished one way or another.
But no, Jack is like, no, my manhood is at stake. This is a trial of honor. Just like Chariots of Fire.
Yeah.
Or 8 Mile again. And just in case that was too subtle for you, they do start playing the Chariots of Fire music as they start these events.
As they start running with freaking scuba flippers on or whatever.
Yeah, and it's just this very silly scene. They're, like, crawling through playground equipment, and they're on mini trampolines, and all of the other men are trying to, like, sabotage Jack because they keep seeing that he's winning, and they're like, God, you gotta stop.
Yeah, don't do this.
But it all comes down to the hurdles at the end. They ride these little mini tricycles down a hill, and they're doing the hurdles, and Jack is in the lead, he's in the lead, and then he looks over to where Carolyn is standing, and he sees a unnamed female assistant, who this is the last time we'll ever see her. She is, like, looking at Caroline and going, what is he doing?
Right.
Why? What is he doing? What is he doing? And he sees these two having this tense interaction and is like, oh, okay. No, this is a real thing. And so he, like, fakes a fall and lets Ron win.
Yeah.
And then Ron gets, like, way too excited.
Yeah.
About winning his extremely stupid competition.
Honestly, before they started, like, they literally, like, lift Ron up on their shoulders and pop a champagne bottle or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is the saddest moment for me. This is where I'm just like, oh, Ron is the saddest person in this movie. He's like, I'm the best. I did it. I'm a winner.
I did it.
He literally is saying, I'm a winner.
So sad and uncomfortable.
God, it's gross. But before all of that, the event looked really fun. Like, the whole time I was taking notes. I'm like, I'm going to set this up in the park. This looks great, actually.
Yeah, and this, like, we kind of see Jack and Carolyn kind of coming back together. He does actually understand what is at stake for her, and he's like, I'm not gonna, for my own sake, make your professional life harder, and she recognizes that he has done that.
Both saying, like, my ego is not more important than your success, and saying, like, the most important thing is our family, which is the sacrifice that he's making there by losing when he didn't have to, and that's the moment in the film where I'm like, okay, all right, this guy's pretty good, because I didn't think he was going to do that. I thought he was just going to win.
Oh, I did too. Yeah, Like, every time I think this movie is going to do something sort of stereotypical, it doesn't, and it makes me happy that it was smart enough to be like, no, this guy's not...
He's a bit of an oaf, but he's not
so
malicious.
Like, no, it's my pride on the line, god damn it. Like, no, he's just, at that moment, he's like, oh no, this is stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, it's stupid. It's fine. Like, my family doesn't care if I win this race or not, and that's what actually matters, so whatever. If he wants to win, he can win.
It's like the things that bother us early on in the movie about his character, actually, like, the fact that he wants to be this, like, macho man or tries to, like, pretend to be in some of these scenes, actually, this is the moment where we realize that that's a benefit. Like, that's a good part of his character.
Yeah.
That's the moment where he's able to swallow his pride and recognize the bigger picture, the thing that's more important. And so, you know, this is the moment where I think I started to, like, actually like this character.
Yeah. He is more nuanced than we gave him credit for being at the beginning. But despite his victory at the playground Olympics, Jack is sliding into a bit of a depression.
The Ronathon, if you will.
Oh my god.
Okay.
I absolutely will not.
He's depressed? Why? Because he didn't win the Ronathon?
Yeah, no, he's depressed because he's depressed. He is taken on some bad habits in his period of unemployment. He is day drinking, he's watching soap operas, he's letting the house get dirty, he's kind of letting the kids go wild. He's, you know, stapling his kid's blanket back together instead of actually fixing it.
It's all escapist behaviors. I mean, no matter what he's doing, he's trying desperately to escape the reality that's been foisted upon him instead of being mindful and dealing with it. And we see it in mostly those ways. The drinking, the gambling, and the soap operas. The gambling, by the way, is just playing poker with the women in the neighborhood, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, the other side of this being that he does have this group of friends in the other, like, housewives from the neighborhood, and they do have this poker night where they do play for coupons.
Yeah,
they're not playing for real money. But unfortunately, one of those friends is Joan.
Oh, yeah.
Who is absolutely honed in on his sort of deteriorating self-esteem, and she is trying to worm her little hooks in there. And when Carolyn comes home one night, she sees Jack hanging out with his girlfriends, as she calls them, and makes some kind of, like, snide comment about it, and that triggers Jack's, like, pent-up self-loathing to just unravel.
Yeah.
And they don't even really have an argument so much as Jack just starts being like, oh, well, I bet you hate this about me, and you think that I'm, like, ugly now, and that I've, you know, the kids are dirty, and the house is dirty, and you think I can't do anything right. And he's just kind of, like, trying to goad her into saying something mean to him.
What, you think I'm fat? You hate the beard, right? And you're probably sick of this. Like, all of these things that he recognizes that he has changed about him and that he has assigned some negative feelings to. And he's looking for this external validation, someone to say, like, yeah, actually it's bad.
And
something's bad.
She doesn't really give him that. What she says is, like, what I care about is that you don't seem to be taking care of yourself. Like, you have worn the same shirt every day. You're not, like, practicing hygiene anymore. She says you have thrown in the towel. And, you know, he's being like, of course I have. My brain is turning into oatmeal. Like, I started yelling at our kid for coloring outside the lines, and I've been, like, watching the same TV shows as our infant, and I like them just as much as she does. Like, I'm losing my mind. To which she's like, I know, like, I did this same thing for years, and, like, the problem is you're just not taking any pride in your work. I, you know, had those same issues. I was lonely and bored, and, like, it's really hard, but you have to just remember that, like, it's important to raise, you know, good people, and that's what you're doing, and you have to take pride in that, which is maybe true, but it's part of the story. There's more of an identity crisis happening for him than what happened for her when she like left her job and became a homemaker. Yeah.
I mean, to her credit, at this point in history, and still today, like, people don't value domestic labor or caretaking in the same way that they value a job that pays big money. Like, you can't equate those two in the same way, but she found a way that made sense for her, and so she's trying to sort of, like, push that on him of, this is the thing, why don't you just do it this way?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, just find some meaning in it. Like, this is the meaning I found in it. You should find that same meaning and
Right.
not necessarily recognizing that something slightly different is happening for him.
Right.
But you know who loves a man in the midst of an identity crisis?
Is it Joan?
It's a fucking Joan. So like after this scene, she calls up the house because she calls Jack and they talk about whatever soap opera they're watching that day. Man, what is it that Alex says? At one point, like, the kids are watching the soap opera.
He's a skunk.
Oh yeah, they're talking about some couple in the soap opera, and the oldest son, Alex, is just like, oh, is it like whatever his name is?
Randall? He's a skunk.
Randall's a skunk. It's a very funny thing to hear. Like,
it's Young and the Restless that they're watching,
yes,
right?
It is. Anyway, so Joan calls up Jack, and, roundabout, she finds out that Jack and Carolyn aren't speaking because they had this fight. And so she's like, I'll come take care of you. And she shows up in her little trench coat. And she's being like, I actually really like your flannel shirt. And I actually really like your beard. And she like whips off her coat to reveal this like lacy negligee. And she's going in for a kiss. And right at that moment, Carolyn walks in through the door.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Gasp.
And then Carolyn pulls out a gun with a silencer. And in his shame, Jack is like, oh, just shoot me. I'm a terrible person. And so she does. She shoots him right through the flannel. And while she's like menacing him with this gun, she's like, what caused it? What prompted this sort of final meltdown? Was it the boredom? Was it the repetition, the loneliness? I did this work for 8 years and I didn't crack. And he's like, I know, I'm sorry. And as he lies dying on the floor, he sees this vision of Jinx, who came in and is like, you know what, I was actually just going to offer you your old job back, but I guess it's too late now. And then Ron shows up and, he whisks Carolyn away and they leave him there to die on the floor. And yes, okay, this is obviously a dream sequence.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a dream sequence.
It fades out by him seeing the end credits of Young and the Restless.
He has fallen asleep during an episode of The Young and the Restless.
Yeah. And it's interesting, though, because it reveals, like, a really important revelation, but only kind of, like, halfway. And we'll talk more about that. I think so with, like, the Jinx part of it showing up particularly. It shows that he's willing to move on in some ways, but he's still kind of clinging to certain parts of his past identity. But he grows. Yeah, it's sort of a metaphorical death, right? And appropriately, as a dream sequence, it does function as a sort of wake-up call for him. That he does, in fact, need to start taking care of himself and his kids and his house, and he does need to start caring. And we know that a shift in his sort of belief system has happened. Because what starts playing? What is that I hear coming out over the distance? Wait, that's a different song. Yeah. That is the Rocky music. In case you couldn't tell from our beautiful rendition, that is the Rocky music. He's got to find the eye of the tiger, Rock. You got to find the eye of the tiger, Rock. I don't know what that means, Carl Weathers. Stop saying it to me. This is a self-care training montage. He's exercising. He shaves his beard. He washes the window. He gets his kids up in the morning and they're going to have a routine, gosh darn it. He starts volunteering at the school and now he's the one telling people that they're driving the wrong way into the parking lot. And only when George Bailey is off duty. Running air raid drills. And finally, in this beautiful sort of ceremony, he burns his gross flannel shirt. Mm-hmm. He throws it into the fireplace. And then he's like, you know what? I've made a lot of progress. So he sits down man to man with Kenny. And he's like, Kenny, you're like, what, 3? You're too old now for this blanket. Your security blanket. Yeah. It's time to get rid of it. And Kenny's like, no, I won't do it, Dad. I won't. Look, it's a long, dark road out there, Ken. Okay, I'm not going to lie to you. Today it's a blanket. Next day it'll be a throw, maybe even a quilt. And then next thing you know, you're an old man out there trying to score an electric blanket. And I don't want that for you, kid. Yeah, this is very... This is the crack cocaine era, you see. Yeah, you have to talk to your kids about blankets. About you simply must. Drugs. Because if you don't, they'll find out on the streets, and then what are you going to do? But eventually he's like, hey, you know what?
I'll tell you what, let me take it for a few days, and if you still want it, then I'll give it back, but let's start trying to wean you off of this thing which again, like, Kenny is very young. I don't think it's necessarily a problem that he has a security blanket still, but anyway, it's sort of a sweet scene, and then he goes outside with the blanket, and Alex is sitting on the stairs like, you had to do it, Dad. You had to do it. Yeah, he's really, I mean, again, oldest child syndrome is in full force with Alex. He's kind of the adult in the room at all times, which is unfortunate because his mom is just like not around anymore. That is the thing. So Carolyn's work has sort of taken over her life a little bit. They make her a nice dinner, which she then like comes home too late to eat properly, and then she like falls asleep on the couch. She's gone all the time. She's working long hours. But in her defense, the work that she's doing is paying off. It's not like she's just like doing all this work for nothing.
Yeah.
She gets to kind of draw on both her experience as an advertiser and as a housewife, and she comes up with an ad idea to pitch to the Schooner Tuna CEO, basically being like, listen, you've done all these stupid gimmicks in the past. They like gave you like a free shot glass with every can of tuna, or like you get a trip to Hawaii. And she was like, and nobody wanted this stuff because people who are like trying to run a household don't care about gimmicks. They need like you to help them with the things they actually care about. So she was like, what you should do is lower the prices of your tuna by 50 cents until the end of the recession and make a big like advertising push and rebrand yourself as like the tuna with a heart.
Yeah.
And the CEO of Schooner Tuna loves it. He's like, I love this bleeding heart shit. And once again is like, where have you been hiding this little girl? But he asks her to come to California at the last minute and help shoot this commercial, which is unfortunate because it's Halloween.
Yeah.
And her family wants to go trick-or-treating.
And they do. They do.
They do. They go without her. And this is a very strange scene because Jack is dressed up as a prisoner about to take his kids out to go trick-or-treating while she's like about to go to the airport and is basically like, hey, like I want to be supportive, but you're missing like a lot of really important moments. Like Megan can talk now and, you know, you're not here to see it. And like, whatever, we got rid of Kenny's blanket and it was such a big important moment for him. And, you know, you weren't here to see that. And she's like, well, it's not like I wanted to go. You know, I was going to dress up like a prison matron, whatever that is. But, you know, I have to.
Does she say that? What is that?
She was some kind of prison something because he was a prisoner and she was going to be like the prison guard, but like the lady version.
Gotcha.
Whatever. I don't really know.
Well, and to the point of this whole costume bit, like, it's really interesting to me that Jack is dressed up as a prisoner because 10 minutes earlier in the film, that would have been like just way too on the nose.
Yeah.
But now we've seen him sort of rehabilitate himself and find his balance with his family. And so he can wear that costume ironically. So he brings up this kind of cutting insult, but he says it with love. He's not trying to start a fight, but he does say that, well, maybe Carolyn, if you were to go with us, you should dress up as a ghost because you really haven't been here.
It's still like a little bit shitty to do this to her, like right as she needs to leave to the airport because she's like, I just convinced someone to spend like $20 million on an ad campaign. Yeah, I'm going to go show my face while they're filming this commercial.
Yeah,
like,
fair enough.
It's a scene in which both people are a little bit right and a little bit wrong.
Yeah.
Which is kind of these two's whole deal, to be honest.
Yeah, they get there.
And so she does go on the trip, and while she's gone, Jack gets a call from Jinx. Jinx is back, baby. And he's like, hey, I can get you your old job back. You don't even have to interview. You just got to come talk to this review board. Just come talk to this review board. They'll just ask you a couple of questions. So Jack shows up, and while they're in the waiting room, Jinx is like, all right, so I'll actually only be able to bring you back by half salary. And that's actually only if you like kind of really say what I need you to say to this review board. And Jack is like, well, you didn't say anything about half salary before.
And even more frightening, like, presumably this process of going in front of a review board should be Jack stating his case why he should be brought back from furlough, why he has something to contribute to the company and they should use their limited resources to rehire him. Because furlough is an extended, you're gone, we can't pay you anything other than a severance package, but there might be a time when the economic recession is better and we can sort of bring you back.
Yeah.
You know, that's the kind of like half promise that he's been living under.
Yeah.
And so it's immediately fishy when Jinx is like, yeah, but you got to do me a solid. It's like, what kind of crap are you been up to there, Jinx?
He's kind of like, I shouldn't really have to say anything about Jinx at all. It should just be me going in and being like, here's why you should bring me back. That is not what happened. The review board starts asking Jack questions about how, you know, what happened after he was let go in his department. Like the expenses kept going up, even though people had been laid off. And like, why is that happening? And Jack is like, well, I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't working there at the time. And Jinx is just sort of like, well, you need to be a real pal right now, buddy. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't understand what the scheme is here. I know Jinx is like embezzling money and he wants Jack to cover for him somehow. I don't know how Jack is supposed to do that when he didn't work for the company at the time that the embezzlement supposedly happened. This is very convoluted and confusing.
It doesn't make sense, but it comes down to like this, in fact, seems to be a review board of Jinx. And he's trying to get Doc Brown and the other loyal Confederates to sort of defend him under the promise of returning under a crap salary because he thinks they need it so badly. And what Mr. Mom realizes is, in fact, no, I don't need this BS at all.
Yeah. And he does give this speech in the scene where he's like, I really did take pride in the work that I did for you. And if you wanted me to come back and do that work again, I would. But it doesn't sound like that's what you want to do. And if you have some problem with what Jinx is doing, then you need to talk to Jinx about it. But I am not going to lie to you in order to get a worse version of my old job back, because I have, in fact, found some new meaning in the work that I'm doing. His kids are just running loose out in the in the lobby somewhere. But he's like, I don't need this badly enough to take it with this like strange, unethical cover-up thing that's happening here.
And not only does he say that in this fiery speech, he shows that when, I don't remember if it was Kenny or Alex, kind of opens the door and kind of interrupts this meeting. And Jinx talks to the kid and sort of says, get out of here, kid. We're having adult business. To which Jack says, if you ever talk to my kid like that again, I'm going to punch you in the mouth.
Yeah, I'm going to hit you. Foreshadowing once again. So, you know, he doesn't get his job back, but, you know, the ladies take him out for a night on the town to cheer him up. They go out for drinks.
Wait. Are we just going to skip over this randomly superfluous scene where he's
in the bathroom?
Yeah, he's just like, after this intense meeting, and he threatens to punch his old boss, therefore sort of cementing his future of not going back to that company. And then we just see him in the bathroom. The kids are all pulling just all the toilet paper and paper towels out, and he's like holding one of them over a toilet or something.
No, he's holding Megan's bare butt up to the hand dryer. I don't know what happened, but that's what's happening in this scene.
And these like executives on the review board just open the bathroom, see that, and are shocked, and then just leave. And he doesn't even say anything. He's just like, what?
I don't know why that scene was there, other than to be like, yeah, this is what he's doing instead of coming back to work for you.
He's chosen this. Yeah. This is how much he does not care about you, Jinx. Like, it's hilarious to me. I love that scene.
It's very silly. What's also very silly is that the ladies are like, I know what'll cheer Jack up, and they take him to a male strip club.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, yeah.
It looked fun. It looked like a fun time.
And again, another one of those moments where they could have done some really lazy, like, homophobic shit, but they were like, no, Jack is kind of like, okay, I mean, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. All right.
He'll give him $1.
Yeah. I'll give him $1. That's fine. Yeah, he has a good time with them. It's a good group of ladies. I like them. Even fucking Joan.
Yeah.
Carolyn, meanwhile, doing good work on her commercial set. We'll talk more about this commercial in a little bit.
Boy, howdy.
But she's doing such a good job that Ron breaks into her hotel room while she's in the bathtub.
Yeah, this is
in order to seduce her, question mark?
He, again, it's like, to distribute the blame, he doesn't break in by, like, picking the lock or, you know, getting a false key or anything. No, he just asks hotel staff, like, what do you call it, room service person, like a concierge or whatever, to unlock the door for him.
And they just do it.
And they're like, okay, all right, Mr. Ron, you bought all of Beverly Hills, sure.
Yeah.
Like, okay, have fun with your sexual assault. We'll be down in the lobby if you need anything.
Yeah, it's very the scene in It's a Wonderful Life where George Bailey is like, you can't go to the police. They'll be on my side. Like, you can't scream for help. He has bought the hotel employees.
But this ain't no George Bailey.
Yeah, this man is not George Bailey. He has brought in this, like, thing of champagne, and he's setting it up in the, like, bedroom part when the phone rings because Jack is home with the boys and they wanted to call to say goodnight to their mom. And Ron answers the phone like an idiot. And they're like, who is this? And he's like, well, Carolyn's not here. And they're like, what do you, this is her husband. And then he just hangs up the phone. And then Carolyn, who has like heard someone breaking into her hotel room and comes out and is just like, oh, Ron, what are you doing? Like, why are you in here? Why are you answering my phone? And he is in there to try to convince her to leave Jack and marry him, not because he likes her, but because she's good for business.
We'll be such a powerful empire together.
Yeah, and she at first is like much nicer than I would have been, just being like, okay, you should go. And he's like,
you've had a bit to drink, time to go.
Yeah, and he's like, no, you must do these, and so she just punches him.
Yeah, I think she even gives him a few warnings, just like, no, really, Ron, you gotta go.
Get out of here.
Like, please leave.
No, she punches him so hard that he falls over and, like, topples over the back of a chair, and it's very slapstick. And even then, he's like, she's got some fight to her. Oh.
Yeah. Well, that was the most frightening part to me, because then it cuts away, and it's like, well, Jesus,
what happened?
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, so she, we find out later, but she does also quit her job in that scene, which, of course she did.
Yeah.
And you asked me while we were watching why that scene wasn't upsetting to me, and, like, it is intellectually, but, like, from the moment that she, like, first goes to work and she's like, oh, he asked me to call him Ron, I was like, oh, well, he's gonna try to assault her.
Well,
That's where this, like, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Of course, it's the 80s. Of course, it just wasn't surprising. I was just sitting there the whole movie. I wasn't
surprised either. It's just like, I don't know. Maybe it's not more threatening than someone stealing your kid out of a grocery cart. I don't know.
No, it's bad. Like, I don't know. It's just different types of predators that exist in different spaces. But just like the most stereotypical kind of predator to me is the male boss. So. Yeah. Like, I've had a job before.
Yeah.
I've never had a boss ask to marry me, but,
Certainly not because you were so good for business.
I've worked in a lot of nonprofit spaces because I am not that good for business, it turns out. I am not much of a saleswoman. But I've also never... Well, I guess I am technically kind of a homemaker. But anyway, I've never figured out how to sell tuna during a recession, so I'll never be valuable enough for the men like Ron of the world. Oh, darn. But anyway, she comes home early to find that Jack, who, just called her hotel room, heard Ron there, and drew his own conclusions, now he's kept his word. He is now renovating the house.
Yeah. Big manic energy from Jack here.
It feels like the male version of, like, I went through a bad breakup, so I got bangs.
Yeah.
He's done that, but he's like, I broke the TV and now I'm tearing the walls down.
Yep.
And he like redoes their entire bedroom in like jungle theme. It's a very weird breakdown he's having. But Joan, who has heard through the grapevine that Carolyn might have been cheating on him in California, shows up to be so supportive. Mm-hmm. She's so nice. And he's like in this weird manic state where he's just like, I'm tearing the walls down. You know where the drinks are. Go get a drink. Ah!
Right.
And he goes to take a shower, and while he's in the shower, she like brings some like whatever Jack Daniels up to the bedroom and is like
brings
lying
Jack
on
the
the
Jack.
bed, and she's like, "Oh, your bed is so comfortable. It's so beautiful in here. Wow." And he is finally like really locked into the fact that like, I could sleep with Joan right now in the middle of the afternoon while my kids are downstairs with the same like service workers,
the cable woman and the Terminator guy. And
he both said Terminator.
I meant it as a joke. That's funny you said it.
The ex-Terminator.
No, he's still terminating it. He didn't get fired.
And while Joan is like laying all sexy like on the bed and he's in the room like, okay, on one hand, she's here and she definitely wants me.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, the kids are going to talk. Alex can be trusted, but Kenny will talk.
And he, to his credit, he goes through the ABCs, the lists of reasons why he should and shouldn't. And he's doing this very extended count to 10, meditate, think it through, instead of making a rash decision that would be very easy in his hyper-emotional manic state. Where
he's also, because he was painting the walls, he has paint all over himself, and he's in a closed room putting paint thinner on his face.
On his face? Yeah, what the hell, bad. Jack? Again, you're an engineer, bruh.
So much misuse of chemicals in this movie.
God.
But he does get to Z, which is that he loves his wife. And so he before he even leaves the bathroom, has already decided he's not going to cheat on her. But
he's walking out, giving a monologue to Joan, who's no longer there.
Yeah, because Carolyn has walked in and been like, "Hey, Joan.
Yeah.
What you doing here in my bedroom with alcohol while my husband's in the shower? What is the deal?"
Mm-hmm.
And Joan is just like, "I gotta go."
Yeah. That Scooby-Doo run where you pedal for a million times in place and then finally
Yeah. So he comes out of the bathroom and he's like, "Joan, we can't do that." And Carolyn's just like, "Sup?"
Hey.
Which is a power move for half a second until he's like, "Well, now wait a minute, you cheated on me. How dare you? I got a household to run." And he stomps out all mad. And he goes, and this is where we go in a real chaotic slide to the end of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So Carolyn is coming down the stairs trying to explain herself. While that's happening, Jinx shows up at the door and he's like, "I'm in real trouble, Jack. You gotta come back. I'll give you your full salary. I'll give you a company car." Which again, I don't know why Jack coming back to work would help Jinx at all. I don't understand any of this, but he has shown back up. He's offering him his job back. While he's doing that, Ron shows up with flowers and a cast on his nose, and he's like, "You gotta come back, Carolyn. I'm sorry, I got a little out of control last night, but you can't quit." And Jack is like, "What? You quit? You didn't cheat on me?" And she's like, No, I didn't sleep with Ron.
Yeah.
And also, I kind of missed my family and I didn't really want to do that job that badly. And actually what she says is, "I could get a better job."
Yeah. She could.
And she could. She's right. And so all of this chaos is happening and the TV repair person comes up and she's like, "Well, how about this?"
Yeah.
Well, first she's like, "Oh, did he get handsy with you? Is that why you punched him?" And she's like, "Yes." And he was like, "Fucking typical."
Yeah.
And then she's like, "You know what you should do? 3 days at the office, 2 days at home."
Yeah. After she fixes the TV, crucially, right?
Well, yeah.
TV fixed.
Yeah,
she
but
starts negotiating with Ron, and then I believe the Terminator goes and start negotiating with Jinx, right?
Yeah, because, the Terminator comes and he's like, "I fixed your termite problem," because he's having a totally different kind of day. And Jack is like, "Well, what do you think? This guy says I could get my full salary back in a company car." And then the other guy's like, "I don't know, I would take it. That seems like a pretty good deal." And he's like, "Well, tell him I don't do anything without Larry and Stan," which I guess are the two other guys. This is the first time we've heard their names.
Doc Brown and the other one.
And the other guy. And so the Terminator guy is like, "He doesn't make a move without Larry and Stan." And so Jinx starts negotiating with that guy, and then Ron is negotiating with the TV repair woman.
All in the background. This is one of my favorite scenes. So they're in the background, and then sort of in the foreground, we see this beautiful family coming back together, Jack and Carolyn and the kids all united. And then off to the side, we see the fixed TV. And who but the beloved... what is this idiot's name?
He doesn't have a name. Schooner Tuna CEO.
Schooner Tuner's CEO.
Who is the most stodgy, stuffy, white guy with money looking man you've ever seen in your life.
Just the fakest, greasiest version of a Richard Nixon trying to convince you that he didn't lie about anything on television and tell you that he cares about the people. Schooner Tuna, the tuna with the heart.
Yeah, so Jack and Carolyn kind of walk away from the others, and she's like, "I missed you." And he's like, "I missed you." And then the kids come in, and they're all sitting on the ground together while all of this negotiation is happening in the background. And the last shot is this man saying, "We're all in this together." And then he holds up a can of tuna and an American flag. And the credits roll.
It's awesome. It's the best ending to a movie I've seen in a long time. It's really good.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. And I got some things to say about that,
Buck
but
wild.
that'll come in part 2.
All right. So yeah, all of that will come in part 2. But wouldn't you know it, we talked for a really long time again.
I'm sweaty.
I'm sweaty too. So again, we said we were going to try to experiment a little bit more with our 2-part episodes. So I think for this week, we are going to call it. And in 2 weeks, we will return to our discussion of
Mr. Mom and Rocky 3.
And look forward to that. Everybody, you have additional homework. You have to watch Rocky 3, and we won't tell you why until next time.
I'll tell you why. It's the best Rocky, I think, other than when we get into the Creed franchise.
No, we have to build the intrigue. Why are we going to talk about Rocky 3? Why Rocky 3 specifically?
I'll just sit
here. No one
here.
can possibly know.
I'll sit here and say that I was on
the listeners back.
Edge of my seat, trying not to talk about Rocky 3 this whole time. Why? Tune in next time. Tuna next time.
Tune in next time.
Tune in next time.
For more compassionate conversations about masculinity in media. We will see you next time.